and welcome back to the Hot Slap. We are talking Autosport. We're talking the top 50 drivers of Autosport. Pretty much a yearly tradition of Autosport. Also, a yearly tradition of mine at Christmas. Yes, when I was a wee kid, Santa Claus would come, pop in my room, we had our stockings in our room, and there would be a wrapped edition of the special Christmas 140 page or whatever double issue of Autosport. And here it is. Clearly been a good boy this year, but we're going to be getting into that top 50 drivers of 2023, and that's pretty much all of Motorsport, and it's one of my favourite things to read. I look forward to it throughout the year because I'm slightly sad and I love Motorsport. So there we go. I bid you no longer waiting. Let's get into it. The top 50 drivers, the Autosport top 50. So as you can see here at number 50, as I'm basically going through the pages as we speak, is Sergio Perez. Yes, Sergio Perez, the driver that finished second in the F1 World Championship, the driver that's 50th in the Autosport top 50. Should he have even got to 50? Because there's a couple of drivers, at least one most notable one I've seen, that has been left out of that top 50. But we'll get into that at the end. But, I mean, Sergio, oh Sergio, wherefore art thou the Sergio that was very good on his tyres, etc. He kind of started the year good, and then it really went downhill. And they've got here, one of this year's biggest questions in deciding the top 50 was whether Perez deserved to be on the list. He started 2023 well, it says, with 2 wins, 2 second places in the opening 4 races to hint at giving Red Bull teammate Max a title challenge. And people believed it. I mean, if we're really honest, we looked at ourselves in the mirror, we wanted to believe it. But alas, after Miami, where Perez was at the front, Verstappen was kind of in the mid-pack and passed him like it was nothing, like he was a GP2 car. The same thing happened in Holland, Verstappen's home race, where Perez had another chance of winning that race, and he also had a chance of winning Las Vegas as well. And he was just absolutely nowhere. It was like he was in a midfield car, the ease of which Verstappen essentially passed him. It was kind of embarrassing if you were Perez or a Sergio Perez fan. So I'm surprised he's even in the top 50. But as Autosport said, he's quite lucky to be in that top 50. But what is crazy is this is the guy that finished second in the World Championship. I cannot remember a time when the guy that in Formula 1 that finished second in the Formula 1 World Championship was so far down in Autosport's rankings. Absolutely atrocious. Maybe the only time would have been 97 when Michael Schumacher, I think, got disqualified for that Jacques Villeneuve incident. I don't know how far he finished. I'll basically have to get back to you on that one. I'll have to look into that. But Sergio Perez at number 50, very, very disappointing. In 49th, we have Nicky Katzberg, who was first in the World Endurance Championship and first at the Nürburgring 24 hours. And next up, we've got Rally's own Thierry Neuville. I probably got that wrong. I'm so sorry. I'm still trying to get used to the pronunciation of rally drivers. Heck, I've got enough of a problem with Formula 1 drivers, but he's 48th. And it says here it was the story of what could have been for the Belgian. He was Hyundai's main threat for that WRC title, scored as many podiums as world champion Kalle Rovanperä, but incidents at crucial moments, it said, cost him dearly. Still, third place, but interestingly, it says he was down 9 from last year, which is interesting. That's the second time I've said interesting. So let's get into number 47, Tomoko Nojiri. Yes, and dear older, he's not that old, is he? He finished third in Super Formula and 8th in Super GT. Next up, we've got Jack Hawksworth, who finished in 46th place, first in the IMSA Sports Car Championship in the GTD Pro. 45th, we have Johan Kristoffersen, who was first in World Rallycross, the World Rallycross Championship, and first in Extreme E. But number 44, yes, you recognise him, super sub, but not so subby anymore, is Nico Hulkenberg, and he's pretty much did what Kevin Magnussen did to Mick Schumacher. He's done to the very own Kevin Magnussen this year. He's really shown him up. He finishes a 44th, a re-entry, and it says after losing his full-time drive with Renault at the end of 2019, I mean that's pre-COVID. Before COVID, this guy had a Formula 1 full-time career. Hulkenberg had to make do with a handful of super sub outings for Racing Point Aston Martin until that Haas came knocking. So well done to Hulkenberg. I think you could have maybe made an argument for him being a tiny bit higher, but still, 44th. 44 for Nico Hulkenberg, 43rd for, yes, if you reckon, you may recognise him, Pascal Wehrlein, former F1 kind of like backmarker, but that's not to show his talent. This guy is quite the talent, and he was 4th in Formula E. No, nothing to frown about at all. Not bad as well. So in 42nd is the Formula 3 world champion, finishing first, obviously, is Gabriele Bortoleto. I probably got that wrong as well. But there, Gabriele Bortoleto, he's a signing, interestingly, from Fernando Alonso. I have to stop saying interesting, but what is good is a re-entry by former kart super driver Sebastian Bourdais, also former Toro Rosso driver, finishes 41st, and he was 7th in the IMSA Sports Car Champion in the GTP. Now, 40th, we have Frederick Vesti, who finished 2nd in the FIA Formula 2 Championship, and he brought it all the way down to that to the last race. So fair play to him. In 39th is Thomas Yeah, sorry. I'm sorry, Thomas. But you did win the DTM Championship, so absolutely fantastically well done for you in 39th. As I've turned the Autosport page over, page number 22, if anyone's following, we've got Kyle Larson, not Lawson. We'll leave Liam Lawson for somewhere else, but Kyle Lawson in 38th. He finishes 2nd in the NASCAR Cup. It's not all about left turns, is it? But I want to talk about the guy that finished in 37th. Yes, he's the runner-up in the Rally World Championship. Elfyn Evans, he had a fantastic year. I mean, it says here he was winless in 2022, but he bounced back in some fashion this season after gelling with his Toyota GR Yaris Rally 1. And it said the Welshman scored 3 wins and took the title fight to his teammate Calais, but regretfully that title fight ended at the penultimate round where the Finn won. But he took him nearly all the way, so fair play to him. And with Calais taking a not really full-time drive for next year, that shocking revelation which we reported on earlier, he is, well, let's be fair, he could be the favourite going into 2024. Yes, a Welshman favourite for that Rally World Championship. Stay tuned, because I tell you what, I'm quite excited about it. Probably not as excited as Mr. Evans is, but I can't wait. So 30, that's 37th, 36th, quite high up, I think, but justifiably so, is the British touring car champion Ash Sutton. And what a year Ash Sutton had. I mean, when we look down here, he had almost like a Verstappen-esque year, but in the BTCC, and it said Sutton had what the stats books will tell you was a record equaling season in the British Touring Car Championship. But he said what was more important to him was the manner of his 4th crown and the fact that he became the first to win it in both front and rear end machinery. And he goes on to say that his quartet of titles emulates, obviously, the great Andy Rouse and the great Colin Turkington. And 12 wins from 30 races. That matches Alan Menyon's, albeit 12 from 24. But we're talking caveats all round, because Alain Menyon did it in an era of there was no success penalties, yet, there were less rounds as well. He won half the rounds. But here's the but. Mr. Sutton did it with success penalties, so maybe it evens it out. But nonetheless, that's any less impressive. Absolutely stunning. How and who is going to stop Ash Sutton in 2024? Goodness me. So 35 is Jules Gounon, the GT legend. He was first in the GT Challenge Europe Endurance Cup. He was first in Bathurst in the 12 hours and first in the Intercontinental GT Challenge. This guy is an absolute demon, isn't he? He's very, he is the rocket ship in that GT. 34th, we have we've got Rafael Marcello. He was first in the GT World Challenge Europe, first in GT Challenge World Europe Endurance Cup, and first in the FIA GT World Cup. Absolutely, Talk about domination. Next up, we've got James Calado, fourth in the FIA World Endurance Championship and winner at Le Mans, 33. Yeah, if you're a Verstappen fan, raise your eyes. James Calado, 30. I mean, well done to him. In 32nd, we have Tom. As I'm changing over, turning the paper, we've got Tom Blomqvist. Tom Blomqvist. Well, at least that's how I'm saying it. But this guy was third in the Sports Car Championship, the IMSA Sports Car Championship, and he won the Daytona 24 Hours. In 31st, we have Scott McLaughlin. Yes, he was third in the IndyCar Series. The guy from New Zealand. Well done to him. And in 30th, we have Sebastian Ogier, the absolute legend. And let's see what Autosport's got to say about him. So Ogier, it says, once again reminded everyone of his class while contesting in what was a part-time World Rally Championship for a second consecutive season. The 8-time champion, 8 times a champion. He added to his glittering career stats by claiming a record-breaking 9th and 7th wins in Monte Carlo and Mexico, respectively. And he even led the championship after his Mexico triumph, despite sitting out Sweden in between. Absolutely. A third win arrived in Kenya after overcoming several challenges, it said. The Toyota driver describing it as a hell of a fight. And he could have easily added 2 more to his tally, given he was leading in Sardinia when he crashed out and in Greece before breaking his suspension. Could he have won the championship? That's the interesting thing. I guess you'd have to go back and see. Being a part-time champion, could Calais, when he comes back, win? If he's part-time enough, let's say semi-full-time, part-time, could he win the champ? It's not statistically, it's not impossible, is it? So that was number 30. We've got number 29. For some, I think maybe quite high up. I think absolutely justifies that 29th place is Liam Lawson. He did an absolutely amazing job as super sub in the Toro Rosso, and after 2 solid, it says, but inconclusive seasons in Formula 2, him coming into the AlphaTauri team. Sorry, I don't think anyone expected him and to do as good as he did. When you look at the stats and when you look at how he was doing in Formula 2, I think no one expected it. But a move to Formula, he needed that move. The pressure was on, and he needed to fully convince Red Bull of how good he was, and he absolutely did that. And he stunned the Japanese establishment quality with a debut win at Fuji. I think that was obviously in Super Formula. That was the first of his 3 victories. And he was parachuted, obviously, to AlphaTauri after Ricciardo broke his hand at Zandvoort. Lawson immediately impressed, and he outscored Tsunoda in their 5 races together. I mean, this guy, absolutely stunning for Liam Lawson. He can hang his head absolutely high. Absolutely right. He's completely destroyed Perez in the rankings there. Completely agree there. So, number 28 is Brody I'm gonna get these names wrong. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry, Brody. Brody Kostecki. Kostecki? Yeah. First in supercars. Absolutely well done, Brody. Fantastic hit. And then, oh my gosh, I've just seen the last name. Felipe Albuquerque. Okay, I'm sorry, Felipe. I've got that wrong. But I bow down to your greatness because you finished second in the IMSA Sports Car Championship and 8th in the FIA World Endurance Championship. Absolutely well done to you. But let's talk about the man in number 26 is Oscar Piastri. So second in qualifying at Suzuka, beating Lando Norris. And the first time Piastri had visited the fearsome track. That is a track, especially those beginning of those S's, that is normally quite difficult. And it says here, it sums up why McLaren was so impressed with the rookie, who scored 2 podiums and should have had another at Silverstone, barring that very unfortunate timing of that safety car. And he had that sprint, the only non-Red Bull guy to win a sprint race. And he won that sprint race, beating Verstappen. Verstappen was hot on his heels, but he absolutely fantastic. I think Piastri's only weakness at the moment is Lando Norris's, his teammate's strength, in that he can look after, Norris can look after the tyres. And that's something that I think Piastri currently is struggling on a tiny bit, but Norris himself said in 2019 that's something he struggled with. So there's hope for your Piastri fans here. In 25th, we have Matt Campbell, 4th in the IMSA Sports Car Championship. In 24th, we've got Tanak. Yes, but an interesting year he had. Tanak was rarely 100% comfortable with driving that M Sport Ford Puma following his shock switch from a Hyundai. But the 2019 champion, he still had 2 WRC wins. It goes on to say the Puma wasn't as heavily developed as both the Toyota and Hyundai rivals, but in his hands it showed flashes of pace to beat the WRC Works teams. And it says he mustered 30 stage wins and 4 podiums, but his title team was derailed by a series of issues. And it goes like Mexico turbo issue, wow, Sardinia electrical, Estonia engine, Finland engine, and Greece water pump. It's like the old Red Bull on that Renault engine from years gone by, or the old McLaren and the Mercedes engine. When Lewis Hamilton kept trying to win races, absolutely failing. It must have been really, really frustrating. Hopefully a better 2024 for Mr. Tanak. I'm sorry if I've got your last name. I'm getting your last name wrong, but there we go. 24th. Interestingly, though, they put him above Mr. Evans. I think that's potentially because the Ford Puma was just, I think it was quite obvious it was not as good as both the Hyundai and Toyota, as Autosport quite rightly said. So that's number 24. I keep having to scroll down now every time I press back and forward. In 23rd, we've got Ryan Blaney, who was the first in NASCAR Cup. Absolutely well done. Familiar face though, at number 22, Kamui Kobayashi. Yes, Mr. Kamui. He was second in the World Endurance in the Hypercars and 11th in Super Formula. Well done, Kamui. But interestingly, number 21, not quite cracking that top 20, is George of the Russell. And it goes on to say, in qualifying performance, Russell was 11-11 in that head-to-head against Hamilton. But the younger Briton, it said, was often outgunned by his more experienced Mercedes teammate in the races. And overall, Russell has even said himself it's one of the worst seasons of his career. He made more mistakes than he did in 2022, and he was very much outshone, particularly in the races, throughout most of the season, compared to Lewis Hamilton. When you look at their lap times, I don't think you should have. I don't think that's nothing really to scoff about, because your teammate is one of the best drivers ever in Formula One. So I think he's doing quite good. And remember, this is the guy that beat Lando Norris in the Formula 2 World Championship. So assuming when they both have very, very similar cars racing against each other, I know they kind of did at times this year, but knew each other. I can't wait to see, because he's a lot more aggressive than Lando Norris, which is, I think we said, is one of Norris's weaknesses, where George Russell may be too aggressive at times, and Lando Norris maybe not so much. And I think if you took both their DNA, you'd almost have a perfect racing driver. So in 20th here, as I'm turning the page, is Shane Van Gisbergen. He was second in supercars. In 19th, we got Lawrence Van Thor, who was, 6th in the FIA World Endurance Championship and 4th in the Spa 24 Hours. In 18th, we have Scott Dixon, who finished second in IndyCar. And Autosport said the ageless enigma, it says, was once again a force to be reckoned with, to finish runner-up in that IndyCar standings and prove the closest yet still distant threat to the Chip Ganassi teammate Alex Palou, who absolutely, let's be honest, dominated IndyCar. This was really a season of domination, wasn't it, in many racing categories. But yeah, he basically Verstappened the IndyCar field, didn't he? So in 17th, we've got Mitch Evans, who is third in Formula E. In 16th, another Formula One alumni is Brendan Hartley. Now, but Mitch Evans, third here. Brendan Hartley, he once again, down to his roots, what we know he's good for. First in the World Endurance Championship, second at Le Mans and in the 24 Hours, and the 24 Hours also he finished second in Daytona. 15th, though, is Carlos Sainz of the Ferrari team. And it says he made the difference for Ferrari on its best chance to win in Singapore. Amazing work, but don't forget, it was Leclerc that did some of the hard work earlier in the race and kind of sacrificed his race, or Ferrari at least, and him sacrificed them, and potentially, I think finishing second to make sure they won that race. Absolutely, for once, Ferrari, absolutely perfect strategy. So that is Carlos Sainz. He won at Silverstone. He won at Silverstone as well, didn't he? Last year in 2022, which was a lesser victory. I think Singapore definitely one of his best races. In 14th, just beating Carlos Sainz is his teammate Charles Leclerc, and he proved largely inseparable from the teammate Carlos Sainz. They were so close, especially towards the end of the year in their championships. But it says his form in the last 2 races made sure he moved ahead in the championship. It says his efforts at Las Vegas almost yielded a victory. That last lap with a dash and beating Sergio Perez was absolutely phenomenal. And Leclerc at his best, I think, on 1 lap pace in qualifying, I think Leclerc is the fastest man currently in Formula 1. I think he's faster than Verstappen. Given the same car, he beats Verstappen over a lap, but I think over the course of a race, Verstappen is more consistent. He does make less mistakes than Leclerc, I feel. And Leclerc, kind of like a bit like Norris, is just that tiny bit away from being an absolute legend of his generation. But I think he's got the talent. I honestly feel he's got the talent to show it. So in 13th, we have Joseph Newgarden. And Mr. Joseph, let's see. Yes, he was 5th in the IndyCar series. Well done. Well done, Joseph. William Byron in 12th. He was, let me see, 3rd in NASCAR. And Ritomo Miati is 11th. He was 1st in Super Formula and, interestingly, 1st also in Super GT. Now we get into the top 10. Most of these are going to be F1 drivers, but not all. We've got Alex Albon in 10th. Absolutely, completely agree with that. His coolness under pressure, it says here, stood out in 2023, and it says he's a key part of the connection he's forged at Williams since rebooting his Formula 1 career after Red Bull. The team knows it can rely on him, and I do think he's one of the drivers that I really feel outperforms the car. But there's one caveat there with Alex Albon, and that caveat is his teammate is Logan Sargent. Not that great, if I'm honest, at the moment. He's been given another year. Hopefully he proves us all wrong, and he shines as, because, an American really takes it to Alex next year, and we can really see what Alex has got. And that's the thing, that's the issue I've got, is it's difficult. We all feel that Alex Albon has got better, but it's difficult to see how good he is. Had he been given, for example, a more solid team like a Hulkenberg or someone and beaten him as profoundly as he did Logan Sargent, I think he'd be a lot higher even in the top 10. But I still feel that Mr. Albon had outperformed the car. 9th is Jake Dennis, the Formula E champion. And it says here 11 Formula E podiums, including 2 victories, were the backbone of his title career. The Andretti driver began the Gen 3 era in dominant style with his win in Mexico City. And I mean, yeah, absolute domination. Well, not Verstappen dominant, but, and it says, before one of nearly 3 months of 4 races without scoring points, put his championship credentials in doubt. But it said, but the Briton bounced back in Berlin to set up a spree of 8 podiums in the final 9 races as he sealed the title on home soil. Much more competitive than Formula 1 was, because that Red Bull, let's be honest, was an absolute rocket ship. And it says, all the more impressively, Dennis was the only Porsche user able to go up against and beat the dominant Jaguar powertrain. So well done to Jake Dennis. As I'm scrolling down, hopefully none of you get vertigo or a bit too dizzy. Scrolling down there to 8th is Nick Cassidy, 2nd in Formula E. It's interesting that he beat Jake Dennis. Why do they feel he beat Jake Dennis? Let's have a look. Just as impressive, taking 4 wins, put him in firmly in title contention. And it says here, was that the first 3 victories came from 8th or lower on the grid. The Envision driver optimizing Jaguar's powertrain and race day. It says he managed energy consumption in that second Berlin race to perfection to lead nearly half the distance, and expertly timed his move to the front in Monaco to claim those back-to-back wins with the standings lead. And it says his more dominant win in the monsoon conditions during the season-ending London E-Prix, overcoming the disappointment of losing the title 24 hours earlier. Oh, there we go. Means he just pips Jake Dennis in our ranking. Fair enough. I mean, fair enough. Then I'm not gonna argue with Autosport. They've got more. I think they've got more journalists and more knowledge than me. But next up, we've got Antonio Furuoka. No, Furuoka, only 1C. He finishes in 7th. Sorry, and he was 3rd in the World Endurance Championship. Interestingly, this is what I felt was interesting. Lewis Hamilton all the way down in 6th. As we know, he was 3rd in the championship, and he said he appeared downbeat at the season's end, but frustrated by the lack of Mercedes progress. after falling off its perch, but he comprehensively beat teammate George Russell. The problem is Lewis just didn't turn up in Abu Dhabi, did he? Or really Brazil. And it says his consistency and ability to reach the highest notes that Russell could not achieve put him in the race for second in the Drivers' Championship. Runner-up finishes as we've got in Melbourne, Barcelona and Mexico showcased excellent drives, as did his pass to second in Austin. Obviously, he was disqualified for that. I can't help. I mean, we put him, I think, in second in total. I put him above Lando Norris, who's, you can see he's third. I did put him above Fernando Alonso as well, because I think he was a bit. Yes, he did make that big mistake in Qatar, but I can't help but feel that if it wasn't for Lewis, Mercedes would not be finishing second in that championship. And I can't help but feel that Ferrari, over the course of the season, may have been the slightly better car. And that McLaren in the second half of the season overall probably was as well. And I think he, a bit like Albon, maybe outshone his car at times. But then he gets his head down, doesn't he, like in Abu Dhabi, and kind of like, where is he? He did have a couple of those where is he weekends. But there we go. Fernando Alonso in fifth. I mean, this guy, what an absolute turnaround for his career. What a change. Everyone thought, why are you going to Aston Martin from Alpine? Everyone thought, including myself, were thinking Alpine is going to be the team for for Alonso compared to the two. Wasn't the case. How wrong were we? And it says, think back to Alonso's long Formula One career. Once he became a race winner with Renault 20 years ago in 2003, his potential was clear. Then rather a lot changed. And it says, well, Alonso had a new challenge in 23, writing another chapter, this time with Aston Martin. Only the Monaco victory begging, which was not his fault, could have capped this year off as better. It says the green team wasn't yet ready to sustain a season-long challenge, as Alonso always insisted, but he's already made it clear it has to be, he's got to win it in 2024, and he has to be consistent. His first stated target for his new car, along with improving that straight line speed. So it's going to be really interesting to see where Aston Martin are next year. Are they going to make it? If they make as big a leap as they did in between the year, they'd probably be the fastest. But that ceiling is getting lower, I think, for teams trying to improve. But well done. I mean, fair play to Alonso and fair play to Calais as well. Absolute rally star. At the start of the year, 5 drivers in the WRC history have successfully defended their title. In 2023, Calais underlined his special talent to become the 6th, and it said the Toyota Star's march to a second consecutive crown was in many ways more impressive than his record-breaking run to become the youngest ever world champion. Knowing the competition would be tougher as drivers and teams acclimatized to these hybrid rules introduced in 2022, he added an incredible consistency and clever driving to his already blistering speed. This guy's only 23 years old, and he finished no worse than 4th while taking 3 wins in a campaign that was blighted by only one costly error when the Finn crashed out in the lead on home soil, and that's his only retirement of the season. Absolutely brilliant. I mean, you can even make a case for him finishing second in the Autosport top 50 for that, but he got beaten by Lando Norris here. And what they got to say about Lando, it said, outside the Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes triumvirate, Norris was the only driver to manage a podium in 2022 with that 3rd place at the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix, Imola. But while McLaren limped out the starting blocks, it says, in dire need of an aerodynamic overhaul, absolutely they did. Norris must have imagined that it would have been hard to even match that feat. But now, it says, under Stella's watchful eye, they proved resurgence with their efforts to turn around what looked potentially to be one of the slowest cars of the year. I mean, we've almost talked to death about how good McLaren were in that turnaround, but the car was drastically improved. And I mean, he hit from Austria. That McLaren was absolutely amazing, and he led even the next race in Austria, the next race after Austria, the British Grand Prix, and that laid the foundations for second. And McLaren now looked worlds apart from its dismal opening. It says Norris repeated that finishing position in Hungary too, doubling his podium tally from 2022, and there was more to come after the summer break. Brilliant. I mean, Norris. Yeah, I can't fault Norris. He was absolutely stunning. The only thing that niggles me, and why I don't think I would have put him maybe as high as 3rd, is because of the mistakes he made. I think he made more mistakes than the other drivers in the top 3 or 4. And with those mistakes, I mean, in Mexico, in Qatar, and Abu Dhabi, where he could have got pole, he could have won the sprint race. It's almost like when it's there, he can't get the ghost of the Russia 2021 out of his head. Things just happen. So I think he's still got a fair bit to prove. He can do it. We know he's got the talent, but let's see what happens. Now, in second place, and I think this is the highest an IndyCar driver's finished for a while. Don't quote me on that though. And it says beyond Matt is Alex Palou, and it says beyond Max Verstappen, few drivers in 23 could claim to be more dominant in their respective series on Palau. The Spaniard's total of 5 wins, a further 5 podiums, and a full house of top 10 finishes from 17 races delivered a beatdown to the field and allowed him to lock up the championship. One round early, and they said the first time it wasn't decided at the season finale since Sebastian Bourdais collected his 4th Champ Car title in 2007. So domination, is consistency, I think, as well. Absolutely won him that, rather than absolute domination, which is obviously Max Verstappen. You can't really argue with it. Yes, he did have the best car. Yes, he didn't have a very good teammate come most of the year, but he still had to win those races, and a lot can go wrong. And this is 11 laps remain of the 23 Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Verstappen is 3.6 seconds behind Red Bull teammate, defeating Baku, a 2-2 record from the opening 4 races of the year. Stare back. And it says, but then the gap starts to come down quite rapidly to 3.1, it says, and holds and it creeps. And they're talking about it as the Red Bull pair lap Valtteri Bottas by lap 47 of 51. It's on the way down with a finishing margin of 2.1. Verstappen had just registered what he considered his worst weekend of the 23 campaign, with 2 defeats in the first double race appearance for the season of the sprint format. He detests, plus that ugly episode with the Mercedes George Russell in that Parc Fermé. But he also had a critical breakthrough that led to a success. And shortly after, absolute 10 races in a row, an absolute record number of victories. I'm not going to all go into it because we've done it before. Absolute domination. One of the most, you can make an argument for the most dominant driver car seasons in Formula One. He absolutely deserves to be there, but where will he be there next year? And I think the biggest question we need from Verstappen is in a really, really tight title fight. Does he have it? He did against Lewis Hamilton, barring, if you remember Abu Dhabi though, despite getting pole, he was kind of nowhere in that race until obviously that end. The race ended. Verstappen, Hamilton had him beat, and what we all thought was potentially maybe a faster car at the time with the Red Bull, but he took Hamilton absolutely to the wire, and he completely dominated proceedings this year. So I want to see a title fight. I want to see a close battle. We nearly had that with Leclerc in 2022, and it was very clean, and he wasn't making mistakes, but it wasn't all the way to the wire. That's what we want to see, and I think Verstappen needs that for any more. I don't think there's too many naysayers, but I imagine there's a few tag-along naysayers to absolutely stamp that authority down as one of the greats of the sport, which I think he potentially can be when you just look at when you look at how talented this guy is. So, I mean, there we go. So we almost want the Red Bull car to not be as good next year and to fight it out with Mercedes and Ferrari. Wouldn't that be amazing? Absolutely. Anyway, if you like today, like and subscribe. That'll be fantastic. If you made it to the end, 33 minutes in, I've been talking. I've got a very dry mouth. Yes, very dry. This has been the Hot Lap. We will speak to you soon. Thank you very much.